Masyado malakas. Okay. So hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Ateneo Art Gallery. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. It's actually, I know the traffic is really bad outside, but when you enter, it's like Ateneo is a ghost town, no? No traffic yet. Anyway, so today we're actually marking the opening of two exhibitions. Later, after you've been to the second floor exhibit, at the third floor, we have 4 video-based works from the Ateneo Art Gallery collection that we remounted. Some of them have not been seen for almost 20 years, I think. And we have some of the artists here. Kaloy Olavides is with us, and Mark Salvatus. Jerry Tan will be here soon, but Martha Atienza could not join us. She's in Bantayan. Today is her brother's wedding, so she couldn't make it, but we've been coordinating with her. But this 2 p.m. Or past 2 p.m. talk is really to introduce our guest curator and guest artist for Project Belonging, which is the exhibit that you will see at the second floor gallery. I will introduce mainly, well, first Kristine Guzmán, who I actually met a few years ago, and the project started with just conversations with her and she having worked with the Aquilizans in 2019. 2021. Yes, the Musak exhibit. So after that, she actually presented a proposal, which we found quite fitting also for the programming of Ateneo Art Gallery. And so she proposed a project that would feature the works of Spanish artist Enrique Marty. And the second part would, together with the Aquilizans, Isabel and Alfredo, the second part of this exhibit will feature more of the Aquilizans and selected works by Enrique Marty. I will allow Kristine to explain the concept of the project and how it relates. I think yesterday we started talking more about it, and we realized Enrique's experience is very much familiar to most of us when we talk about family. No? And so we'll begin with the conversation. So Kristine, can we ask you to sit here? And Enrique Marty, our guest artist from Spain.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Boots, for that lovely introduction. Thank you to everyone for coming, for joining us here in this opening. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Ateneo team for all their hard work and dedication, especially yesterday and during the past week and during the process of installation. Thank you so much to Ria, to Rio, to Roanne, and to Jeremy for all your work, and also to Pedro and to Carmen for all the untiring support all the time, and also for the generosity of Enrique, who gifted us with a lovely additional artwork that wasn't in the original plan. So I'm very honored to be able to curate this, my first curatorial project in the Philippines since I left 25 years ago. My friends know that when I left the Philippines, I left as an architect, and now I'm coming back 25 years as a curator, so they don't know this facet of mine, and I'm glad to be able to share this new work experience with them by bringing together 2 artists who I have had the honor of working with for the past few years. So as Boots has said, this project was conceptualized during the time that I was organizing an exhibition with Isabel and Alfredo Aquilizan for Musak. So this was in 2021, but I started to have a talk with them back in 2019. And in this photograph, you'll see the final installation that we did at Musac in Leon, which was great, and it was a wonderful experience to work with them. And with this exhibition at the Ateneo, it's a lovely opportunity to be able to dialogue with the work of Enrique. Enrique is practically the artist who I have curated most in my short career and who I've written about most. I think I grew up with him because I didn't know anything about the art world during the time that I arrived in Spain. So he was one of the first few artists I've worked with. And one of the last projects that I did also at Musac was this Fall of the Idols in 2001. So as you can see, these are two artists who maybe if you know their works, you would probably wonder how they can dialogue, because their works are not exactly similar. They have major differences in their works. As you can see, the Aquilizans like to use pre-loved materials from their families or the communities they work with by making these huge installations. On the other hand, Enrique is a multidisciplinary artist. He has worked, I don't know, I've always defined you as a Renaissance man because he has done paintings, sculptures, he's worked with film, videos, he's all around. So I can see many differences, but at the same time many similarities. But most of all, the most important conceptual similarity in their work is that they work with the idea of the family, the idea of belonging, of being part of a community. Their approaches are different because the Aquilizans deal with it through the topic of integration. They use materials that they borrow from other people and integrate it into one whole, while Enrique's process is more of a segregation process. So he uses his memory, images from his own family, and makes snippets of his own realities. So these two different approaches, but they both speak about family. And I think that's a topic that we as Filipinos, or perhaps any audience in general, can relate to. But mostly, of course, the Filipino audience, because we are so much family-oriented. When we see this exhibition, I think we can relate to it very much. So that is the main object, the main concept of the exhibition, but we divided it into two parts. So the first part is entitled The Foreign in the Familiar, and the second part is the familiar in the foreign. And it has to do with how each of them deals with their own approach to the concept of family, because as I said, while the Aquilizans use familiar objects, and then when we see these objects, we find that it is not ours, but we find something familiar in them. But with Enrique, it's the foreign in the familiar, because he uses his own everyday objects, images from his family album, but then he makes something sinister, something strange in those images that we will find out later when we talk about many different layers of his work. So I would like to start from way back when we met practically in 1999. When I was an intern at the Reina Sofia Museum, and one of the first projects that we worked on was an exhibition, his individual exhibition at the Reina Sofia entitled La Familia, or The Family. And I remember when I saw your works, they were like contact prints of, it seemed to me like Polaroid shots of for your family doing everyday things, but they were, I had the doubt that if it was painting or is it photograph, or did you make a painting over the photograph? So perhaps I want you to start telling us about how this project of the family came about.
Yeah, hello, yeah. Yeah, well, I was spending, after the faculty studying arts, I spent time doing this, doing the other. I started this project as a way of exorcism, with trying to deal with the relation with my family. I always say that my parents, they have a terrible relation between them, and my family, both families, my father family and my mother family, were very particular. They have characteristics that make them mm, let's say, not the average family. And I found it really a very good tool to start with. The family. I think that the family is a very important symbol. It's a symbol because everybody has a family. It's something that you cannot avoid. Even an orphan person has a family or is going to deal with the absence of family. But the family as a symbol is extremely important. And normally we don't choose the family or primal family, I mean. And I started documenting my parents. First with Polaroid photos, and then I transformed the photos into these paintings that Kristine talked about. And I wanted to mix both languages, the Polaroid, which was very used in the pop art by Andy Warhol and so, and the traditional painting using oil on wood, like very traditional. I never projected or used, I never painted over the photos. I just did it in the traditional system, just brushes and painting. But I call it snap painting, like a snapshots, snap painting, because I introduced a process. The process has that I have to be very fast. Sometimes I say that for one painting it took me 20 minutes. Normally it was one day, some hours working on that, but I managed to do it very fast. It was like almost like a performance, trying to paint thousands. And I did it. In the Reina Sofia Museum, we showed hanging in the walls almost 400 paintings, but still a lot remain all over the place. Even we allow the visitors to be able to pick into the paintings, like in a store or in a.
So this is part of the process of Enrique.
Yeah,
He starts with the Polaroid photos. I found this on the internet, so you probably sent it to someone. And then these are just everyday photos of his family doing everyday routine stuff, like his mother, I don't know, cleaning the house, his father. All your family members were models, as well as your close circle. How did they accept being models for you? Were they...
Well, there are several phases. First, they didn't want to. Even I have a terrible fight with my father, that even physical, that my father, said, "You are not going to paint me again in your life. This is forbidden." So I followed with my mother only, but something happened afterwards. My father became very ill. He was just about to die. And when he recovered, once in the hospital, he asked me, "Hey, take me pictures." And I said, "Are you sure? You sure?" And I was never going to paint you anymore. He said, "No, do it." So I started again with him, and the work followed. And I call this series Amnesia, because it was he forgot completely about this warning that if he painted him again, I was going to die. But first they didn't understand, because the way of work, it's difficult to explain, because they represent themselves. And it was very fluid, it was like a flow. It was like they were doing something, and then I said, "Hey, can you just do this posture?" And they did it. Or sometimes I just took a photo of what they're doing. It's difficult to talk about a practice
Mhm.
because it was very, very real.
Mhm.
So it was very difficult. But they changed. First, they thought I was an idiot, a clown, that I was doing that was not art. I studied fine arts, but I was completely spoiled because I was doing completely stupid things, and nobody was going to even to take a look. But after some time, and it's a bit sad, but they realized that it was not so idiotic when they started to read in the newspapers, and I was doing shows, and they discovered that, wow, maybe.
You mentioned that your dad changed his opinion about your art when you had an exhibition at Salamanca at the cathedral, was it? Or
No, that was very strange. But this was previously. My mother. It sounds very surreal. I was living with them again. I was in my early 20s, and I was living together with them. And my mother told me I was out, I don't know where. When I came back home, my mother told me, "Hey son, you received a telephone call from the bishop." I said, "From the bishop?" "Yeah, he wants a painting from you for an exhibition or something like that."
Mhm.
I said, "What? The bishop is curating an exhibition?" That was extremely strange, and it was true. They were doing a thing called Las Edades del Hombre, which it was going to be held in the cathedral, but I proposed a painting that they didn't want to hang, so it was not
May
made.
I know what painting was that?
I destroyed that painting, but yeah, but it was just a monk hanging from a rope.
Oh, okay. I could understand why they don't want to show
You
that.
can talk of a lot of different things with by this image.
Mhm. So going back to this La Familia series, so this is what Enrique did back in '99 for the Reina Sofia Museum, and as you can see, well, the origin of the photographs are from the Polaroid shots. It's his family, his nieces, his nephews. But when I saw these, it was like I found something strange, like something weird. Like why were your nieces bloody or bruised, or was it real, or did you add these effects to these photographs? What did you want to show in these photographs?
I wanted to talk about the unheimlich, Freudian term, psychological term of the unheimlich, which is the strange event that takes place in your place or in your control environment. And the
unheimlich, actually, we can see it in the Manipulated album, which is also one of your early works,
Yeah.
in which we can see this work in the exhibition. So it's an album that people can go through. Enrique reproduced the original album of his family by taking pictures of each one of the photographs of the album, and he painted over the photos. So if you see it, you will realize that, oh, there's something strange about these photographs, because why are the kids kind of monstrous? Why do they have those eyes? No? So this was referring to that concept of the unheimlich, which was a term that was a concept developed by Freud, which is very present in Enrique's works, not only in the album, but also in the La Familia series. Showing several installations that we did of the same work in different venues. We had it in Musak, we had it in Argentina as well, and in Tokyo. You spoke about your mother and your father, about them being models for your works, but you were saying also that this was kind of a therapy for you, because your parents didn't really get along very well with each other. So you portrayed your mother sometimes as a saint and your father sometimes as a monster. So was this the way you perceived them?
No, not at all. They could be both
Monsters.
monsters and saints in the same day, literally in 1 second. So the ambiguity is important for me in my work. So that would be so simple, not saying no, this is good, this is bad. I think that it's everything is relative, and that the ambiguity, everything is strange. The reality is strange, and this is what I want to show.
Because each
in the work.
family has its own strangeness, los trapos sucios, is
Of
what
course.
they say in Spain, the dirty rags that you
Yeah.
want to keep in your family, you don't want to reveal to the public, but it is there. So what Enrique is trying to do is to reveal it to us, to put a mirror in front of us and to say that no family is perfect. We all have our flaws. It doesn't matter. It's not so important if you reveal these flaws because it's part of daily life. It's part of reality. So it's the unheimlich that he's referring to. And your parents, they weren't a perfect couple, and we can attest to that with this video. Maybe we can show the public this video. So before this animation video, you had another video which was the shooting lesson. Shooting lesson was an image of his father teaching his mother. Okay, your father teaching your mother how to use the gun, because Enrique's dad is a military, so he had a gun, and they were. So they were in the house playing with the gun that your father was teaching your mother how to load the gun and all of that. And then afterwards, you filmed each one of them with a gun. How did you go about with this project? And did they know what was the outcome going to be?
shooting lessons was, yeah, this video. This is real image. I always say the comillas for when I use the word real, because I always doubt about this word. And this was real image, and it's in the kitchen. My father teaching my mother how to load the gun. That was a real gun, real bullets, and we were there in the kitchen with my mother hanging a gun, moving the gun like this, and I was a bit crazy in that period. And this video is the process is an animation, still by still, and I painted all the photograms. I mean, just as you see there. The total are 3,300, something like that. It's 24 photograms per second, and you see here a sample of it. To record it, I went to not the countryside, just the outer limits of Salamanca, with my father, with a gun, with a small gun, and I asked him to shoot. That's it. Did you notice that first he's pissing in the grass with the gun on the other hand? So this shows that you have a really you feel comfortable with guns, and that was easy. Hello, yeah. To go to the countryside to shoot, okay. But for my mother, I asked her to shoot in the living room of the house. So I I set some stuff to stop the bullets, like a wood and polyester resin and something like a big stuff to stop the bullets there. And I gave her the biggest gun I could find from my father and asked her to shoot. So this is real fire. And it was the first time, of course, for my mother handling with a gun. And you can see that she's scared. She's scared when she shoots. It's like the noise is terrible, and the smell of powder is terrible. It's not like in the movies that everybody shoots like pa 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 and that's all. It's very disturbing. It's really very disturbing. And then I did a montage of the images and did the paintings. And I put it like that, like a duel, but once again, you make the duel in your brain because he is on the countryside, she's inside the house. So they are not in the same place. So probably most of you notice now, but maybe not, that they are not in the same place. So they are not shooting each other. You are making the scene in your brain. And this is what I wanted to say, that probably you make the story yourself, but also that there are a lot of details that you don't notice at the first glance, that the television of my mother's is showing things that you have to discover, and I like to hide things here and there, and this is more or less it depicts, it's a portrait of the relation, of course, but it's yeah.
Yeah, this is another work of Enrique's, using Enrique's parents as models. It's entitled Mother and Father, and this was actually in the Mosaic collection, and we've exhibited it many times already. People love it because they look real. Actually, Enrique did a sort of a performance in the early 2000s, 2002. It's entitled Acciones en Casa, Actions at Home. So he made those sculptures and he put them in the living room. So his parents were there interacting with the sculptures, talking to them, to their doubles, right? And then we see them here, so you don't really know who is real, who is the sculpture. But you made your mother in a bigger scale, while your father is smaller. Does that have any meaning to you? Why? What was the...
Actually, my father was bigger than my mother, but I did the opposite way. I did my mother bigger than her real size, and my father smaller. And my father was very worried about it, because he was like, but why I'm smaller? And he literally took a friend who was a psychologist to analyze this, and the psychologist said, he reduced you. Like 5 years of studying in the faculty to say that, it's like really a spoil of time. Because it's not like that, not at all. That would be very simple and simplest. It's first of all, I wanted to study their reactions with this event.
Mm-hmm.
I want to study it, and I literally made the piece for this performance.
For the performance at home.
Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
was the main purpose, to
Mm-hmm.
make this installation 1 month, living
Mm-hmm.
together, and document their life together, the 4 of them. It was like I didn't have enough with 2 parents, now I have 4.
4 who weren't getting along very well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And also the sculptures at that moment, they were mobile. You could mobile, so they could be standing or sitting, or now they are fixed.
Mm-hmm.
But I could transport the sculptures from one place to another of the, and it was quite funny to see my mother, the 2 mothers watching TV, for example, in the sofa, dressed exactly the same way. And that was, and actually, normally in the sculptures, the hair and the clothes is
Are real hair
real
and real clothes.
from the real persons. I cut the hair and took the clothes.
Mm-hmm. Your
from
mother
them.
was obviously enjoying having these sculptures at the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Laughing at my father, yes. Because she's
So
laughing because he's smaller.
He's smaller. So it
Yeah.
wasn't only therapy for you, it was also a therapy for them.
100%. Maybe more for them.
More for them.
Mhm.
Did the relationship become better after that?
Yeah, it became better. Yeah, better. But then afterwards, when I stopped to work with them in this way
Uh-huh.
and worked on other series, it got worse and worse
Mhm.
and worse.
Okay. So
I was going to do, but I never did it. I proposed them to do an installation in their place, who was to build a wall, dividing the house in 2, with wire, and like in a concentration camp.
Uh-huh.
But they said no.
No, but you did an action that they weren't aware of,
Mhm.
right? Which is this,
Yeah.
the manipulated photo of your
Yeah,
parents'
this is
wedding.
their wedding photo, and this is the real place where it was hanging, close to their bed, and and I took it from the frame and transformed it and put it back, and they didn't realize. That was so funny.
So they found out.
They never look at it, never, or if they look at it, they didn't find anything strange.
So Enrique manipulated the eyes and made them
And the
like
mouth and
and
the
mouth,
eyebrows
made them
and-
like monstrous creatures that that got married. And did they ever realize that it was manipulated after
No,
a
never.
while? Never.
Never. I again put it back and nothing ever.
Okay, so
And they slept here, right? This is the
the bed. So your nieces and nephews were also part of your works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I worked a lot with my nephews. They are, yeah. and they enjoy it. They like it because I wanted to show the children's play, because I noticed that the children's plays, they are always almost cruel. They like to play that they were killing each other, they were playing cruelties, torturing or fighting, and then I wanted to reproduce that. And most of these serious children's plays, it's like that, very violent actually. There I paint the bloods. They didn't have blood, but it is like that.
Yeah, because in a way your works are like a micro reflection of society. So what is happening in the family
Exactly.
is a reflection of the entire
Oh,
society.
Yes, of course. I would say that looking at the microcosmos, at the same time you are talking about the macrocosmos. And I discovered that at a certain point, what occurs in your environment, in your house, in your family, in your school, is exactly the same that occurs in the world, in the relation between countries, between
On a bigger scale.
on a bigger scale. Yeah. If you look at in school, what happens there happens exactly the same in the world. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
But for children is just playing, but the politicians are playing as well, but with nuclear bombs.
That's very true. And well, these works are in the exhibition. So you can see the children's play. You can see the Superwoman crossing herself. So this is the work that's at the entrance of the exhibition. It's Enrique's mother doing the sign of the cross. So that's when I saw this, and I always thought that you represented your mother as a holy person, because she was always trying to play the saint. And
Indeed, I did a series of her doing postures taken from all classic paintings. Saints.
because
Because she was very dramatic. She behaved like very theatrically always, like in a Baroque painting. I always saw her like a Baroque character.
like she would have lived in another time
Or in a painting
or in a painting.
by Rubens, for instance.
Yeah, but maybe it was also like a frustration, right? Because your mother was a housewife,
Yeah.
but for sure, if she had the opportunity, she would have been something else.
She was very frustrated, and you can feel it. She was very, very frustrated. But she was not aware of it. She was not conscious that her character problems or her personality was due to this frustration.
Okay. There's another topic to discuss in your work, and I wanted to start with this, with the image of this exhibition that we did at Musak in 2005. So it was really big, major exhibition. I don't know how many paintings and sculptures you produced for this. It's entitled Flaschengeist. And it remits us to this olden day style fairs, wherein there was attractions, but then also a human zoo. You made sculptures of the seven-headed woman, the Siamese twins, and all of those. So there's also a huge body of your work that speaks about the others, that speaks about how we perceive others, because that is also a way of how you work, because you observe the other people and you use those observations in your work. So can you tell us more about Flaschengeist, because I think this is a very important work in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Flaschengeist, the name comes from a small attraction that came every year to Salamanca. It was this attraction, when you see it closed, it was called Flaschengeist. And there was a painting of an incredibly magical painting of a goblin coming out from a bottle. Is what it means in German. Flashing Geist, the goblin or the ghoul in a bottle. And when I was a child, I was fascinated by this attraction, and I couldn't see open never. But finally, I don't know why. It was like a malediction. I couldn't find it open. It was always closed with this cover. It was a big painting. And when I saw it opened, that I imagined that was going to be something incredible. I couldn't imagine what it was inside. But inside there was only one guy and some bottles with a little stick in every bottle, in el corcho, in the cork, and a little rifle,
Shooting gun.
little balls to shoot to the sticks. It was so extremely disappointing. And the guy
Microphone.
stick.
Microphone.
The guy was lying there like like very boring guy there, and I was like, this is not magic at all. This is just the opposite. It was a, but that leads me to the idea of that you make everything in your imagination. In my imagination, that flashing geist attraction was incredible, but it was not. And the idea of the fairground attraction is like it is a place that supposedly you have to be happy, go to enjoy, but nobody enjoys there, I guess. It's a dark place. The colors, the lights, the weird people that you see around, and the freaks. And it's like behind the attractions there are spider webs and dirt. That's what I mean.
The freaks have appeared in your work many times because they are here in the German's cottage. So sorry. They were. It's not in this photograph, but he has those posters featuring the twins, the levitating woman, the snake man, and all of those stuff. And then you have the visitors, what we call the visitors, which is this group of 3 men dressed in suits, and they are visiting the fair, and they are observing the people who are observing at the same time the freaks in the attractions.
They are monsters
at
the
same time.
It's like the visitors who are dressed in suits, and they are looking at the fair like, yeah, look at these monsters, look at these freaks. They are monsters themselves. So the only 3 visitors are there, and they are in a way like thinking that they are above the others, but they are not. They are just the same. And the exhibition is very difficult to describe just by pictures, because it was very labyrinthic. There was, as I call it, an outside part, which was this. It was all inside the museum, but this was there. But then you had a lot of labyrinths, paths through rooms. There was a theater. There was a cinema projection. There was rooms. There were rooms where the only thing that you see were plaster molds for the teeth. Remember? Hundreds that I took from my dentist. And paintings, or the circus banners are paintings that I did. This runabout was a real one, but never stopped. We hired that was quite big, and never stopped, and turned very fast, remember?
Yes.
Without stopping, so nobody could take it.
Yeah, and this exhibition also shows the theatrical aspect of Enrique's work, because he likes to make big installations that are immersive. Almost at the same time as the German's cottage, you did a site-specific installation in Orbigo. You transformed an old slaughterhouse into a disco.
A brothel.
A brothel. A brothel.
A brothel cabaret,
Mm-hmm.
like a cabaret brothel.
Uh-huh. And it functioned for 1 month or so. Yeah.
Yeah, not as a brothel. Yeah, it was the idea was because I was invited for this project, and I saw this abandoned slaughterhouse, and I saw that in the surroundings there were a lot of brothels, a lot, really thousands. I was really shocked to find what's going on here in this area. There were all around the villages, and there were thousands. They were all the same, a building with lights, flashing lights with the name of the specific brothel. So I called this brothel Matadero, Club Matadero, which Club Slaughterhouse, with luminous flashing lights, and inside you find like a cabaret with rooms and discotheques and a lot of installations, mini installations inside it.
Were there freaks also? Were there freaks also?
Some
in
of
this?
the freaks,
Yeah.
maybe some visitors were a lot, very freaks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm.
We did a big party.
Yes,
Remember,
I
that
know
was
that.
like that was a performance as well. That party, the inaugural party, a lot of people came from Madrid, from León, from the Musac, hired several buses, right, to pick up people. There were like 3,000 people in the opening. That was amazing. And the opening was like a big party, but a big party with like a little village big party. It's difficult to explain the peculiarities of in Spain. The performances were very very bizarre. We hired some bands and singers to play. I did a DJ playing just very, very tacky music from the 70s, 60s of Spain. And yeah.
Yeah, but with these works like this, the German's Cottage and the Matadero, you were like questioning what is the normal, what is how we perceive others, and it's still continuous in your work right now. In fact, you are doing another video with Kaspar Hauser. Kaspar Hauser was an adolescent in Germany in the 17th century, I believe, and he was raised up in isolation. And Enrique did a video about him because his story was very peculiar. So what's this attraction towards the other, the different?
I'm trying to figure out why still. But yeah, it exists. But I don't know why. I always say that I have questions, not answers.
But
Mostly.
that is the role of the artist, to pose questions.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to make the good questions, and the question contains the answer in a certain way. And that I wanted to say that exhibition of the Orbigo reflected about what we call La España Profunda, the deep Spain,
The deep Spain.
the dark side of Spain.
The dark side of Spain. And speaking about the dark side, you've also spoken about Jung, about the concept of the shadow. The shadow is, maybe you can explain it on, but it's like the darker side in each of one of us in our personality that we don't want to reveal. And the shadow is present in your works also through the crow, through also this symbol of Aleister Crowley. It's like quite complex, but perhaps you can tell us about the shadow which is present in this work that you exhibited at Dados in Salamanca.
Yeah, this museum was a former prison, and they, in the shape that it has now, it still keeps some elements of the prison. So they have this, and part of the show was this Rape of Europe. It's a big, enormous sculpture And the shadow. The shadow is, it's difficult to I try to explain. It's a silhouette there, silhouette of myself. It's 2D, so it's a boot. But the arm, here is the arm. 3D is a sculpture of the arm. And if you illuminate it properly, you get this shadow. It's, this, exactly this. This is taken from a very well-known photo of Aleister Crowley. I'm familiar with him. He was an occultist, British occultist, that he was an artist as well, and he considered himself a magician, but not a magician of the one who makes appears or disappear a girl in a box. A real magician, I mean, a person who can change reality. So as I think that art literally can change reality, I find it very important, very inspiring, his figure.
And there is another term that is usually associated with this body of work, which is the Übermensch.
Übermensch.
Übermensch. Yeah.
Übermensch is a term by Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah, it's like
It's-
a place within each person that torments us. So
It's
there are
no,
nightmares.
the Übermensch is the person who goes beyond the person. It's very bad translated in Spanish mostly. It's called Superman. It's not at all like that. It's the person who transcends limitations, all kind of limitations, and becomes a super human, but not in the sense that it's going to fly or to have super strength, but that is free, in the way that is free.
So if we look into our shadows, we transcend ourselves. Is that what your work is saying?
That's the shadow theory. It's from Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, and it's if you confront your shadow, instead of having your shadow hidden behind you, if you confront your shadow and accept it, you transcend your shadow.
Okay, so it's like you're placing a mirror in front of the audience for them to see and try to overcome their fears.
Yeah. I use the mirrors very often as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
With these artworks is the reference to Aleister Crowley. Well, you explained already who
Yeah.
Aleister Crowley is, and here Enrique did self-portraits in front of Aleister's house, which is this white house there, and in front of the house is the cemetery, where you can see many people named Fraser buried, except for one over here, which says MacDonald, Ronald MacDonald. So at one point, you started to not use your parents or your family as models, but you started working on yourself as a model for your works.
In some series, yes.
You see, you have.
Yes, I took my own image. It could sound contradictory, but trying to result anonymous. I mean, if I'm talking about myself, it relieves the idea of I'm talking about someone else. You know, if I depict my father like that, people is going to think he's talking about his father. But if I represent myself, it's like a performance. I'm doing a performance. So it's more general, more open.
Yeah, and you represented yourself in different ways. Yeah. For example, this one is also, how many sculptures was this?
80.
80 sculptures of yourself in several poses. And the sculpture transforms into a painting that goes all around the room, and you are in like different state of...
It was like a long line of pilgrims worshipping nothing.
And in here, this was also a self-representation because you were the same sculpture in all of these figures bowing down, but you can't see his face, but it was also him. So why that use of the self? Was it a search for self-identity, or was it, I don't know.
I don't know as well. I don't know. It's probably, as I told you, to use myself as a model to avoid, it was like a reaction, to avoid to talk about someone else.
Okay.
I was using myself. It was a part just for some years, and then I'm doing something different now. But still, I can come back to it in any moment.
Yeah, and then there was also, you also used the mask as a reference in many of your works. So this was a diptych, a video diptych, which is entitled The Birth of Tragedy 1 and 2. This is in the exhibition, The Birth of Tragedy. Maybe you can tell us about these two works.
Yeah, The Birth of Tragedy. It's from a book by Friedrich Nietzsche. And in this book, he speaks about the Greek tragedy and the stereotypes and archetypes of the Greek tragedy. And then he ends up to demolish the society, the complete society, in only one book. And I tried to make an homage to this book with the help of my parents. And my mother is removing a mask, a Joker mask, and my father is wearing a Venetian mask. Just this, you're going to see it in the exhibition, this video. It's my mother wearing the Joker mask, removing the mask, and behaving like the Joker. Laughing hysterically. So what can we think? When we remove the mask, we have the same. The same. Sometimes masks are not hiding something incredibly beautiful or good or whatever. Sometimes masks are taken wrongly. And in the case of my father, I used mostly the nihilism of the explanation. It's like you take for granted a complete empty explanation. My father asked me, I wanted to ask you, in the video you listen to his voice, I wanted to ask you why I'm wearing this mask. And I only say, it's a Venetian mask. He said, what? Venetian mask. That's my only explanation. He said, okay. So my explanation is nothing, but he takes it for granted. I left in the background, you listen a voice who is talking all the time. People ask me if this is an electronic voice, a cacophony, as we say in Spain or something. No, it's the King, Juan Carlos I. This was shot during the speech of the king, exactly in that moment. My father had the television on, and I recorded the video, especially in that moment, and I left the audio of the king.
Okay, so, well, the mask is in a way represents the shadow, so it's the face that we want to show to society, or the face that we want to hide in society.
Exactly, and the complexity of the shadow.
And the complexity of the shadow.
It's not so, not only to, people understand that, okay, if I accept my evil, dark side, I'm going to transcend. It's not so simple.
But then also it was influenced by The Birth of Tragedy, as you said, but then The Birth of Tragedy, you also tried to represent it through classical references. In this case, you did this work, which is entitled I'm in a Very Delicate Situation, which was a copy of Castor and Pollux.
Yes. Yes, I did a series of anti-heroic or
anti-monumental
anti-monumental
works.
sculptures.
Mhm.
This one, or representation of a Zeus, or the representation of the Zeus Poseidon of the Greek,
Mhm.
the
The
this
classical
bronze,
sculptures.
yeah, which is standing,
Mhm.
very famous.
Mhm.
Did this series, but they represent exactly the sculpture, but with real flesh. What happened if we remove the marble, the perfection, the
Remove them from
polish,
the
the polish surface, but
Mhm.
you get this flesh that maybe has been punished with a wipe or burns or whatever.
Yeah, and then you put some scars in the skin.
Scars, yes,
Mhm.
yeah. But the marble cannot have scars, but the flesh can have it. So if imagine that I'm the sculptor, the Greek sculptor who makes Castor and Pollux, and those guys are posing for me. Actually, it's the same guy, and I'm completely sure it was the same model for the classical sculpture. And I carve in marble the sculpture. I would idealize those guys that come from I don't know where, from maybe I don't know, fighting or sleeping in the ground, I don't know. And they pose for me, I make an heroic sculpture. If I would be that sculpture, that's what I wanted to express.
But you also wanted to express the balance between the opposite forces, because Dionysus and Apollo was also contrasting. So it was like what you were saying about finding order in the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. That was very important for Nietzsche. Nietzsche was very devoted Dionysian, an opposition to Apollonius' way of thinking. But as finally he said, you have to find the equilibrium between them. Nietzsche, I've always been fascinated by how he lost his sanity embracing the horse in Turin. That was a fascinating moment for me. He became completely crazy.
Yeah, I know Niche in all your works, you always make references to him and to Foucault and to Freud.
Yeah, but Foucault is for, I don't want to offend, but I want to make love of Foucault a little bit.
You already did in a
several times,
several times.
But also Nietzsche. I don't. Yeah. I only respect just a few, only deep.
Going back to this, I wanted to ask you about the concept of beauty. Because it's an old debate that was way before in the modern times, in the Baroque, that there was this debate: does art have to be beautiful? And then you make sculptures that are tarnished, that are scarred. So the concept of beauty in art, how do you approach it?
First of all, you can find beautiful this or not. But as I think that contradiction is extremely important to be strong, it's important to be contradictory. And now I'm doing this series that that is just the opposite. It's beautiful. It talks about beauty, about art history, about Baroque, but if you have a second glance, you will discover that I'm talking again about the same things with a different, it's like a cover-up with a different look.
Okay, and then this shows your versatility. You make sculptures, but you paint over your sculptures, so it shows how you can combine painting and sculpture at the same time, in the same way that you can combine sculpture and installations in theater. This was also a body of work which is called Art is Dangerous. So you invited several people, close friends to pose for you.
From the artwork.
For the artwork, and you painted tattoos on them. So they're very beautifully done because the tattoos were about iconographic references of mafia groups all over the world. And iconography is very present in all your works from the start. So perhaps you can tell us about this series, Art is Dangerous.
Yeah, I was observing at that period the average visitor of the museums and galleries, and I became mad at them because I noticed in the openings that people they were more concerned about having a drink or talk or meet people than in the works. And I decided to do works that if you are not very aware of them and careful, you probably were going to be damaged because the knives are really sharp. And if you get close to them distractedly, you're probably going to have a wound. I have a lot of these series, is like 20-something sculptures. And to be able to look closely to the tattoos and the details, you have to be very aware because you have blades and knives very close to you. And they represent real people. I took casts, plastic molds from Kristine as well. And
I did not include that in the slide.
And I showed them several times in different places, in different countries, and people got wounds from it, from the audience. Even it was written, beware, the blades are very sharp, don't touch it, don't approach, be very careful. Still, people even touch it on purpose, not believing that they were very sharp. And then complaining, like, there were warnings everywhere. So, and if you remember in this group that were taken to Arco, they needed to close the booth because it was impossible. The people approached to them very distractedly. So that's what I wanted to say, that art is dangerous literally in this moment, but the main point is that I truly believe that art is dangerous in a way that can change your mind, your reality, your surroundings. If you are, even a lot of artists think the same way. Picasso thought the same way, for example. But
yeah, art proposes ideas to you that makes you change your point of view and makes you question your...
changing your point of view changes everything. It all depends on your point of view.
Yes. And that leads us to All Your World is Pointless, because All Your World is Pointless is a series of videos, but this I call like an essay notebook, an essay sketchbook that you started working on since 2013 up to the present. So you divided it into several episodes. So far, for now, we have 7 episodes, and we're showing in the exhibition the episode 3. So it's a work that actually condenses all your thought processes, because I can see a parallelism between this video and some of the works that you created during that time that these videos were created, because, well, the series of The Family, which was episode 3, was more or less done during the same period that you started, well, later on, but it was about the family, but you were working with your mother, and actually your mother participated in some of the episodes, right? So what can you tell us about this series?
The name, I think, is quite descriptive. All your work is pointless. And I express like that. I don't say all my word is pointless. It's like a accusation. No? I'm talking directly to you. All your word is pointless.
It's An affirmation.
Yeah. But I'm not meaning, your word is absurd. No, I don't even, I like the word, but the sense, a lot of people tries to find the sense of the word, but it has no sense by itself. I again say that you make sense. You construct your reality. And that's what I want to say with this series.
Yeah, actually you speak about absurdity in several of your works, and I remember this from Patio Herreriano, which was also exhibited at Musac, and this was also like talking about fanaticism, about
the fall of the idols. Again,
religion.
I borrow Nietzsche's word, and the system that I used to do this series, there are more than 500.
More than 500.
500
sculptures.
Yeah, and but now the collection is divided in between the collection of Musac and another museum in Ghent, and I did this series using the remainings of the studio. What remained in the studio, the materials, all the materials that are tons of materials that remains after doing the sculptures, doing installations, working total, the stages for the movies, even paintings, everything, rework these materials into those pieces. Why? It's like a way of saying, okay, in the chaos, I have a chaos, could be considered rubbish. I'm going to rise again all these elements and make again new artworks with the remainings. It's like to make logic in the chaos, to find a sense in the chaos of what the remainings, which is the lowest that you can find.
And then again, it's the anti-monumentalism. It's bringing down the sculpture from the pedestal and bringing them down to the level of the public.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go back to all of the other previous concepts with the other works, and at the same time, it was also with this work which we showed in Gijón, but it also has something to do with the space, because you are inspired by the space in most of these installations, because this Fall of the Idols was installed in a chapel. So you conceived the installation when you found out where the space, the exhibition space that it was going to be held in it, and you conceived the exhibition inspired by the concept of the chapel. And at the same time, this one was also an old desacralized chapel, and we made this exhibition with a totem that they were venerating.
30 meters
yeah,
high.
30 meters high totem that they were venerating. So it's I also like the idea of how you reuse your artworks, because you make new works from old works. You iterate sculptures and make new ones. So the works are constantly evolving.
And that's why I always say that I have only one work.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, your website is kind of difficult to navigate through, but I think it's more of a conceptual website, because it looks like a tree.
Yeah.
Wherein there's like a main branch, and then everything branches out from that tree.
Exactly.
So it's not a very practical website, but it's more of a conceptual website for me, I think.
Yeah. Actually, it's a very old-fashioned website. And to keep it like that, we have to have in the studio a very old computer. Especially for that.
Yeah, to keep it old school.
Because then the new programs to make websites don't support this computer.
Okay, so one of the last topics I want to discuss are your more recent works. You've always worked around the idea of the Baroque, of Renaissance as well. And there were several exhibitions wherein you, for example, this one reinterpreted it, the Lázaro Galdiano in Madrid, where you inserted several artworks within the collection. It was a game that we already did also in Argentina, remember, when we inserted several artworks into the permanent collection. And it worked really well because it was like a treasure hunt. And then the people were like trying to find clues of where to find, where was the real one and the new collection. So it was a treasure hunt in this case. So you had like several idols. So it also goes back to the other work of the Fall of the Idols, because here you were also making idols to insert in the collection of the Lázaro Galdiano. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shows like that are, I try to be, first of all, very respectful with the collection, with the building, and then to make a dialogue. And the best way is to make a respectful dialogue. And to hide inside could be very respectful.
And then you have the Baroque elements, for example, there. Was this, well, we have the skulls, we have the Memento Mori. There was also a reference to Duchamp. Was it? Was it in this exhibition?
Yeah. All this series. It's a reference to the Tandone.
And then now we have your new works, which is also like a return to the Baroque. So the slide doesn't give any justice to the real painting, because you can't really appreciate. This is a very small painting. I don't know.
30 centimeters.
30 centimeters, but I have a photograph of you painting it. No. There. So here, it's a photograph of Enrique making one of those paintings. So you can see it's very small. And he uses a brush that is number 0. I don't know, very small brush to make those details. So I would like you to tell us about this is the latest series he is working on, and it was exhibited at the Antwerp Cathedral. It's still ongoing right now until November. Yeah, can you tell us about this new series?
This series in all the
De Profundis.
De Profundis, yeah. And I was I was born and raised in Salamanca. Salamanca is a very old city in Spain with a lot of churches and old monuments, and I was being always fascinated by it. And as I feel fascination by the Baroque, and my first book ever was a Rubens biography when I was 6-year-old. I immediately read about the Antwerp Cathedral and the Rubens that are hanging there. Most of the most important pieces, not only from Rubens, but the Descendant from the Cross, the Ascent, the Rising of the Cross, the Assumption of Mary, and so on. And there was the chance to do a show there in the cathedral through the gallery in Antwerp. And I was more than happy to do it. So I wanted again to do a dialogue, not to the cathedral screaming, but more like a calm dialogue. So I did 12 paintings, some individuals, some diptychs, some triptychs, as you see. And they are displayed all around the cathedral, but you never know if they belong to the cathedral. They could be there forever. And 2 sculptures. This is one of the sculptures. This is a bronze sculpture. And I used all these things that I developing takes place in the same cathedral, in the same place. So the container of the show is the motif of the paintings at the same time. So the viewer is looking at paintings that takes place exactly where the viewer is. So that conceptual play, I like it. And also, I make references to Rubens, to Baroque, also to Van Eyck, to Roger van der Weyden, because the format and the idea of developing things that take place in temples comes from Van Eyck or van der Weyden, that they did it in the 7 sacraments or the Annunciation of the Virgin Mary, for example, by Van Eyck. And I use the strategy of oversized figures, or I took elements from the cathedral and distribute symbolically.
Well, yeah, even the title, De Profundis, comes from the Bible.
Comes from the Psalm
And the
130, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but also comes from
a
the
letter.
Oscar Wilde,
Mm-hmm.
De Profundis, that is based on the Psalm, of course. And it's because Oscar Wilde, when he felt completely isolated, depressed, alone, he wrote this letter, mm-hmm. and it's one of my favorite pieces of literature ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, we'll be happy to accept any questions about Enrique's work. I hope you were able to get a general glimpse of his practice. It's very profound. It has many layers into it, but I hope that we were able to give some clues about the different concepts that shape his practice. So, for questions?
Maybe I can start.
Yes, please.
Because the first time I met Enrique was last year, no, in Madrid. And could you share to our guests what was your earliest? How were you introduced to the Philippines? It had something to do with films. Maybe you could share that. And I think I can see the connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, when I was a teenager, I became very fan of the horror Philippine movies. I found it really like masterpieces of contemporary art. They are pure, extreme, with no complex, just very pure. I found it very, really.
Do you remember any titles?
Yes.
Can you recall any
Actually,
titles?
he once told me about a film by Maria Isabel Lopez. I forgot the title. And then he was just describing to me the scenery, that it was because he watched it in Tagalog.
Yeah.
So he was telling me about the film. So he was just describing to me literally about the film. And I didn't see the film at that time yet, and so I searched for the film, and I was able to watch it. And then it was so funny because what his interpretation of the film, watching it in Tagalog, was not was very different from the real plot of the film. So
I understood nothing. But I made my own movie.
Yeah, he made his own interpretation. So it's just the same with art, you know.
Absolutely.
You can make the audience is free to make their own interpretations.
That's why I prefer to keep on watching in Tagalog the movies, because I make my own movie. So there are movies with real monsters, flying heads that fly, vampire women that only
I know
have the vertebral column. And
you asked me many times about folklore, about superstitions in the Philippines. And
but also I was very impressed by a movie from the 80s, I think, called Silip.
That was it. Yeah.
And I find it a masterpiece. You don't agree? It's a very, very strong film, and the the scenes are very powerful, extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew that it was very successful, I guess, because they did new versions. Through the pass of the years, they did new versions. And through the pass of the years, the versions were worse and worse and softer. But the first one is really, really
Gritty.
fleshy and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to describe it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's really good, really good.
Do you
So the
think
title is
that
Scenic?
after your trip here, it will inspire you to do
Yeah, so for sure,
more works that have to do with
for sure.
folklore
Mhm.
and stuff?
Hmm. No, the folklore also, as I find it very interesting. I know that there are very interesting folklore ideas and costumes, and very interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you also mentioned about your interest in curiosity in about faith healers. Is that
The?
faith healers?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
In Spain we're known as curanderos psíquicos, psychic healers. They were very popular in the 80s. A lot of documentaries, really, a lot about the Philippine psychic healers, because they make surgery on you with a lot of blood and then they clean it, and there's nothing, no even a scar, and you supposedly are cured. And I felt a fascination when I was a child, as mixed of horrifying. I find it very scary, but they were very popular in Spain, and the people felt a lot of curiosity about it. There were a lot of documentaries about it, a lot of, yeah, and also the crucified. The crucified, I find it. Yeah.
During that season. If
Yeah.
you want to witness it, it still happens outside the
I know.
Manila,
Mm.
Pampanga.
Mhm.
Any questions from the audience? Wala. We actually have guests from Instituto Cervantes. Mr. Pons is here. And we heard that you have a project with Enrique. Is it okay to talk about it? Yeah? Uh-huh. Yeah, okay. But they're actually planning to go up to Baguio and meet someone who's part. Is that already definite? I don't know if we can talk about it. Yeah. Yes, yes.
Can we say it?
Can we talk about it in public? It's an ongoing project that perhaps. Not yet. I think people would be interested once they hear about it.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier about this video. One of the videos of All Your World is Pointless is an episode about Caspar Hauser, who was the adolescent who was in 17th century Germany, who grew up in isolation. So, and Enrique started to do this episode. And then I, just told him about Kidlat Tahimik, who starred in a film of Werner Herzog in 1974. And he played a little part in that film wherein he played like a human zoo, someone from a human zoo. So I mentioned it to Enrique, and Enrique decided to incorporate the figure of Kidlat Tahimik as a shaman in the episode of All Your World is Pointless. And it's we would like to show it, if everything goes well, at the Instituto Cervantes, perhaps in November. So if everything goes well, you might see us again in Manila. So
And yes, Kidlat is actually expecting them to on the next week. No? So hopefully you get to meet him in person, the shaman. Yeah. Okay. Any comments or questions about? Yes.
What's gonna happen to the mural that paint by Enrique and
We haven't really yes, perhaps just to put some context to what we'll see. We had some logistical problems with a set of works that were packed and picked up, but never really left Spain. We realized it didn't. So, and it arrived just yesterday afternoon. So, in between, when we were not sure if it would arrive or not, Kristine and Pedro discussed with Enrique. He was still in Spain earlier this week, and discussed what would be a plan B. So the plan B is actually there. You will see it. It's a big mural. He painted directly on our wall. We haven't really discussed what's going to happen, but perhaps what I can say is that he painted on a cladding. So it's not the actual wall. It's wood cladding. It's plywood, which has been painted with acrylic.
Which is actually a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
I think.
So, if we are careful enough, we can actually remove it from the wall. Would you allow us to keep it, or I don't know?
You're putting him on the spot.
No, just. But yes. So
you're free to
it's
answer or
it's
not.
a work that was created on site, and it was really because there's several works that were still on its way. And which you will see is very much in keeping with the theme of his practice. He started working on it 2 days ago. They arrived last Thursday. Yes, on Wednesday.
On Wednesday evening.
Wednesday evening. So he started working on it Thursday and finished
Friday.
it yesterday about midday. No.
Yeah. In the
So
afternoon.
1.5 days.
1.5 days. Yeah.
Or less than 2 days.
Yeah. Enrique would like to say something.
So of course, I prefer you to keep it than to erase it.
Not to, yes, I don't think we can paint over it. No, we shouldn't. So
I would prefer
we'll-
100% that you
we'll
keep
make
it.
sure, we have to figure out how to do it properly so that you won't have to come back to or maybe you can come back when we decide to mount it again.
So now Enrique is part of the Ateneo Art Gallery collection.
Yes, thank you. Well, this is, sorry if I put you on the spot, but yeah. Because I think that's a valid question that I also wanted to.
For questions.
Maybe I can start.
Yes, please.
Because the first time I met Enrique was last year, no, in Madrid. And could you share to our guests what was your earliest? How were you introduced to the Philippines? It had something to do with films. Maybe you could share that. And I think I can see the connection. Yes.
Yeah, actually, when I was a teenager, I became very fan of the horror Philippine movies. I found it really like masterpieces of contemporary art. They are pure, extreme, with no complex, just very pure. I found it very, really.
Do you remember any titles?
Yes.
Can you recall any titles?
Actually, he once told me about a film by Maria Isabel Lopez. I forgot the title. And then he was just describing to me the scenery, that it was because he watched it in Tagalog.
Yeah.
So he was telling me about the film. So he was just describing to me literally about the film. And I didn't see the film at that time yet, and so I searched for the film and I was able to watch it. And then it was so funny because what his interpretation of the film, watching it in Tagalog, was not was very different from the real plot of the film. So I forget that
I
title.
understood nothing. But I made my own movie.
Yeah, he made his own interpretation. So it's just the same with art, you know. You can
Absolutely.
make the audience is free to make their own interpretations.
That's why I prefer to keep on watching in Tagalog the movies, because yeah, I make my own movie. So there are movies with real monsters, flying heads that fly, vampire women that only
Yeah, I know
have the vertebral column, and
you asked me many times about folklore,
Yeah,
about
yeah,
superstitions
exactly.
in the Philippines. And
But also I was very impressed by a movie from the 80s, I think, called Silip.
that was it. Yeah.
And I find it a masterpiece. You don't agree? It's a very, very strong film, and the scenes are very powerful, extremely powerful. Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. And then I knew that it was very successful, I guess, because they did new versions. Through the pass of the years, they did new versions, and through the pass of the years, the versions were worse and worse and softer and softer. But the first one is really, really
Gritty.
fleshy and I don't know how to describe it. It's really good, really good.
Do you
So the
think
title is
that
Silip?
after your trip here, it will inspire you to do
Yeah, so for sure,
more works that have to do with
for sure.
folklore
Mhm.
and stuff?
No, the folklore also, as I find it very interesting. I know that there are very interesting folklore ideas and costumes, and very interesting. Yeah.
And you also mentioned about your interest in curiosity in about faith healers. Is that
The?
faith healers?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
In Spain we're known as curanderos psíquicos, psychic healers. They were very popular in the 80s. A lot of documentaries, really, a lot about the Philippine psychic healers, because they make surgery on you with a lot of blood and then they clean it, and there's nothing, no even a scar, and you supposedly are cured. And I felt a fascination when I was a child, as mixed of horrifying. I find it very scary, but they were very popular in Spain, and the people felt a lot of curiosity about it. There were a lot of documentaries about it, a lot of and also the crucified. The crucified, I find it. Yeah.
During that season. If
Yeah.
you want to witness it, it still happens outside the
I know.
Manila and Pampanga. Any questions from the audience? Wala. We actually have guests from Instituto Cervantes. Mr. Pons is here. And we heard that you have a project with Enrique. Is it okay to talk about it? Yes. Yeah? Uh-huh. Okay. But they're actually planning to go up to Baguio and meet someone's part. Is that already definite? I don't know if we can talk about it. Yeah. Yes, yes.
Can we say it?
Can we talk about it in public? It's an ongoing project that perhaps. Not yet. I think people would be interested once they hear about it.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier about this video. One of the videos of All Your World is Pointless is an episode about Caspar Hauser, who was the adolescent who was in 17th century Germany, who grew up in isolation. So, and Enrique started to do this episode. And then I, just told him about Kidlat Tahimik, who starred in a film of Werner Herzog in 1974. And he played a little part in that film wherein he played like a human zoo, someone from a human zoo. So I mentioned it to Enrique, and Enrique decided to incorporate the figure of Kidlat Tahimik as a shaman in the episode of All Your World is Pointless. And it's we would like to show it, if everything goes well, at the Instituto Cervantes, perhaps in November. So if everything goes well, you might see us again in Manila. So
And yes, Kidlat is actually expecting them to on the next week. No? So hopefully you get to to meet him in person, the shaman. Yeah. Okay. Any comments or questions about? Yes.
What's gonna happen to the mural that paint by Enrique and
We haven't really. Yes. Perhaps just to put some context to what we'll see. We had some logistical problems with a set of works that were packed and picked up, but never really left Spain. We realized it didn't. So, and it arrived just yesterday afternoon. So, in between, when we were not sure if it would arrive or not, Kristine and Pedro discussed with Enrique. He was still in Spain earlier this week, and discussed what would be a plan B. So the plan B is actually there. You will see it. It's a big mural. He painted directly on our wall. We haven't really discussed what's going to happen, but perhaps what I can say is that he painted on a cladding. So it's not the actual wall. It's wood cladding. It's plywood, which has been painted with acrylic.
Which is actually a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
I think.
So, if we are careful enough, we can actually remove it from the wall. Would you allow us to keep it, or I don't know?
You're putting him on the spot.
No, just. But yes, so
you're free to
it's
answer or
it's
not.
a work that's that was created on site, and it was really because there's several works that were still on its way, and which you will see is very much in keeping with the theme of his practice. He started working on it 2 days ago. They arrived last Thursday. Yes, on Wednesday.
On Wednesday evening.
Wednesday evening. So he started working on it Thursday and finished
Friday.
it yesterday about midday. No.
Yeah.
Oo.
In the
So
afternoon.
1.5 days,
1.5 days. Yeah.
or less than 2 days. Yeah.
Yeah. Enrique would like to say something.
So of course, I prefer you to keep it than to erase it.
Not to yes. I don't think we can paint over it. No, we shouldn't. So
I would prefer
We'll-
100% that you
we'll
keep
make
it.
sure we have to figure out how to do it properly, so that you won't have to come back to or maybe you can come back when we decide to mount it again.
So now Enrique is part of the Ateneo Art Gallery
Yes.
collection.
Yes, thank you. Well, this is, sorry if I put you on the spot, but yeah. Because I think that's a valid question that I also wanted to, didn't have time to do
Yeah, we
it.
didn't have time to
Yes. What? Can you talk about the mural?
Yeah.
Why do you decided to focus on that particular?
Yeah,
work?
I used a photo. I wanted to make an elongation, an extension of the album series that you will find the watercolors, the small watercolors hanging on the wall, and you enter on the right. And I wanted to make this series, but in the format of a wall painting. The wall painting, which is just the opposite, it's enormous. It's very evident, not than the watercolors that are very small. And I used a photo of my family again, but my family when my father was 3-4 years old, something like that. So the picture is from almost 100 years old. My father will be 100 years old the 7th of this month when I arrived. And it's, yeah, my father, my aunts, and my uncle, and my grandma in the beach in 1928, something like that. And I made a prolongation and elongation of the image using Filipino family that I don't know. We found the photo, and I was based on this photo to represent like this enormous family of my family and the Filipino family that I don't know, but for this mural, they are going to live forever together, and by the coast, and they are mostly looking at the river, and that was the idea, to put these two words together.
Probably be some questions later when people get to see the exhibit. But for now, we'd like to thank Kristine and Enrique for this very interesting conversation you're sharing. I think our audience is thinking how much their own families have similarities with your experiences in a good way and maybe not in not so good ways. But yeah, so thank you for joining us. And I think, well, it's almost 4 o'clock, and this marks the formal opening of 2 exhibitions, Project Belonging from Here and There, and at the 3rd floor we have Transitions and Continuity, 4 video-based works from the Ateneo Art Gallery collection. So thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Feel free to talk to Kristine and Enrique. I'm sure you have several questions, or sharing maybe. Thank you.
Thank you.